Everyone, welcome to season 4 of Footprints in the Market. I decided that we'd start off with a bang, so we've got the man, the myth, the legend. That is Martin Hodges, CMO and co-founder of Bet Comply. Hello, Martin, and thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you for having me. I would say it's a pleasure to be here, but I've been trying to put this off for so long.
Well, so that's actually a good point, right? So for everybody that's listening, I've been trying to get Martin on, who's the co-creator of this podcast, since season 1. And he's told me no in every way possible. I've tried asking him after he's had a beer, I've tried texting him, I've tried emailing him, and he keeps telling me no. So thank you for coming.
I think you must have caught me at a very weak moment.
Well, yeah, I'm still kind of wondering if you're a mirage or if it's really, it's really yeah.
This is AI Martin.
This is AI Martin. Oh, there you go. Okay, so I think most people know who you are in the space, right? You've been in it, what, 15 plus years. And we're going to talk a little bit
Yeah.
later about personal branding and why everybody does know you because I call you Mufasa.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it at your point. But tell us about your career journey so far.
Um, yeah, kind of. It has been a long time. I feel very old now. So I think it was back in the early 2000s. I was actually working for a sports marketing company with some of the sort of leading kind of Premier League clubs in the UK, and I started working with a lot of the football blogs, football fan
Okay,
sites,
so
um, and basically realised that a lot of them weren't really doing anything with kind of affiliates or betting companies at all. So kind of put a business plan together and a model together, approached a number of these sites, and they've got huge traffic. Some of them have got bigger traffic than the actual football clubs themselves. And basically kind of put a proposal to those guys and said, look, would you be interested in me running your affiliate site? I'll run all the banners, I'll give you links, and basically kind of start building up a kind of affiliate network of that. Grew that, and then that kind of got taken in by a UK gaming operator,
yeah.
and then basically started running his whole affiliate program, and then that kind of moved up into running affiliates and marketing, and that was kind of it. That was the entry into iGaming, and I've not looked back since.
You're listening to Footprints in the Market, the marketing playbook for iGaming. Expect unfiltered insight from market leaders on their industry experience, real-life case studies, pitfalls to avoid, and actionable takeaways for practical growth of your brand. Footprints in the Market is brought to you by Digital Footprints, your strategic marketing partner and safest bet in iGaming. So you've pretty much covered like every type of everything in terms of the whole iGaming ecosystem, right? You've been affiliate, B2B, events,
Yeah,
and what's
yeah,
different,
absolutely.
do you think, between B2B and B2C marketing? What have you kind of learned having to make that transition?
I think when you're kind of doing B2C, it's certainly in kind of gaming, it's it's basically the kind of focus and the positioning is all around kind of more fun, convenience, lifestyle, um, enjoyment, entertainment. And when you kind of move on to more of a B2C, it's really kind of starting to push the value, the trust, the brand. There's a lot more stakeholders involved in decision making. Obviously your channels are very different, but your messaging changes into a more kind of professional, informative, kind of chat-based kind of approach on what you're pushing out.
And I think in terms of, as well as moving from B2C to B2B, you've also kind of changed in terms of what your role, right? Because not only are you CMO, you're co-founder of Bet Comply. So how do you kind of
Yeah.
split your time in terms of getting the marketing right and, running the business? How do you do that? How does that work?
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, but I think that the two roles kind of feed quite nicely into each other as well. As co-founder, I'm thinking about the kind of the
Yeah.
bigger picture, where Bet Comply is heading, what gaps we fill in the market, how we keep innovating and kind of growing the business. As CMO, I'm focused on how we kind of tell
Yeah.
that story, how we communicate what we do, how we build trust with clients and our partners. It's probably my time's probably split about sort of 70
Yeah.
30. with the majority on kind of the day-to-day marketing, commercial side of it, and then the rest on kind of overall kind of business strategy and the direction of the company. It's trying to make sure that the marketing message and the company vision stay completely aligned. I mean, as you know, with kind of starting your own business, you wear a lot of hats, and that's kind of part of the fun of kind of building something from the ground up. Really.
Talking about that sort of messaging about compliance, like when people think about compliance, definitely from a market side, I think sometimes people can think it's kind of like a blocker to creativity. And I know
Yeah,
I've had those moments, like if I've come up with like a really, really good idea and I've like, I can't even do that actually because it's in this geo, it's ruined, I need to come up with something different.
yeah.
Bet comply positions it as, it's the opposite. It's like an enabler instead of that. So how do you kind of feel about that, and how you're trying to position yourselves as something a bit different and saying, well, actually, this helps?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but I think that kind of compliance pressure should be something that drives innovation rather than
Yeah.
blocks it. When you kind of know the rules, the boundaries that you're working in, you can kind of then start getting a little bit creative with how to work in it. It's about trying to make sure that compliance and creativity sit side by side, rather than kind of in separate boxes. In kind of different sides of the business. I think as a kind of leader within that sort of sector, it's about trying to stay curious and open-minded. The best ideas in regulated industries often come from finding new ways to do things right, not just fast. It's that balance between innovation and
Yeah.
integrity that I think can really kind of drive it forward.
And I think especially in this niche, if you're in like a YMYL niche, surely you would think that brands that take compliance incredibly seriously, they're those that are the ones that can build trust and credibility. Do you think like using somebody like Bet Comply, who's kind of got that background and experience behind them, it gives them maybe a better return in ROI because of how people are seeing it in the outside?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. When you're kind of dealing with a consultancy like Bet Comply, the fact that you've been through, you've had an experienced team kind of go through all your products, your company business strategy, your licensing application, whether it's an audit on a game studio, it's kind of it's a nice tick to have, to kind of show to the industry that actually you take compliance seriously, and you've brought in an expert to double and triple check that you're doing kind of the things properly, and you're serious about kind of providing the kind of best service to your players.
Bet Comply, was it just reached 2 years now? Is that how old Bet Comply is?
Just over 2 years. Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's on every iGaming publication. Use it absolutely everywhere, and use it. We're obviously doing so well. And I'm not just saying this because you're my pal. I'm not just saying it because you bought me a Prosecco now and again at the Fox. If there was like not one silver bullet, but if you could say this has been your key to kind of marketing success, what do you think that would look like?
Wow. It's been a number of factors, I think. I think one would be, when we started marketing Bet Comply, it was very heavily based around Mike's
Yeah.
experience in the market. So this is my business partner, Mike DeGraff, who's our chief compliance officer. Very well respected, very well known, very educated, very authoritative on the market. So it was kind of about really positioning Mike as the kind of thought
Yeah.
leader, and then we started pushing Bet Comply as a brand kind of secondary
Yeah.
to this. And then what we've tried to do is kind of bring Mike down a little bit and kind of reposition Bet Comply as the kind of company that Mike is then speaking for. And I think now we've kind of got a balance where people know Bet Comply, they see
Yeah.
us. I think through reading articles and thought leadership and interviews that Mike's done and other members of the team have done, I think we've just positioned ourselves now as having a superb knowledge and understanding of global markets, what companies need to do to be able to enter markets quickly, what they need to do to make sure they kind of, they go by the rules, how they need to kind of promote games, the best ways of doing it. When we kind of started this business, we didn't just want to be another consultancy. We really wanted to kind of be a business partner to our clients. So understanding their business strategy, where they wanted to go with their company, with their product, where it may be, and kind of being a kind of little outfit to fix onto their kind of business to go, right, this is what we think you should do, this is how we think you should get there, this is what you need to do to kind of get into these markets. And it's having a real A to Z kind of understanding of their business, to be able to kind of give them the best advice, rather than coming in and going, yeah, you need an Android license, well, you should do this, or you should do that. It's really going, what actually is your business strategy in the next 12 months, 3 months, 5 years, and how can BetComply start planning you to get you into these markets?
I think you're right. I think it's all about like kind of being like that extension, like of a team, rather than kind of being like a faceless sort of here's just here's just your advice and that's it. How do you see that
100%.
going? See, is like Beckham, because it's only going to get bigger and bigger as you kind of scale. How do you see the balance of you guys being able to kind of like manage that personalized, non-cookie cutter service and being that extension when you grow and have so many clients? How do you see that going? How do you think you'll manage that?
I think exactly as we are now. It's all down to kind of the team that we bring on board. We bring on some of the most incredible compliance experts in the industry. And it's Mike kind of oversees all the compliance side, and then we brought in kind of Luz as an operations director to kind of help them kind of manage the team. But it's just making sure that the staff understand. We try not to micromanage. We try and kind of just kind of give them more of a guidance. I think we all work as kind of very transparent with a lot of trust. So we try and just give direction rather than kind of micromanaging. So I think as long as we kind of keep doing that, bringing in the quality people, keep feeding back with honest answers and information back to our clients, we can kind of carry on taking it globally around the world and help anyone that we can.
Footprints in the Market is sponsored by BetComply, because in iGaming, compliance isn't just a tick box exercise. From new market entry to ever-changing regulations, BetComply keeps you one step ahead. Don't risk it, own it. Head to betcomply.com and take control of your compliance today. And you mentioned it sort of like at the start of your journey, there was like a big push on Mike in terms of, thought leadership and getting that personal name and personal kind of branding out there. I obviously joked earlier when I'd said that I call you Mufasa, right? But that's actually a true story. And the reason I'm going to touch on it is because actually I think it fits in quite nicely. So the reason I call Martin Mufasa is because anytime I go out for dinner with him, anytime I go out for drinks with him, it's kind of like I'm in this room with Kim Kardashian of iGaming, where if he just comes up and goes, hi Martin, hi Martin, hi Martin, and I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. So he has literally saved in my phone as that, and we've got a group, WhatsApp group, which I have aptly named Pride Rock, and took quite a lot of time choosing profile icons and choosing all that. But my point is, you clearly have great connections within the space, but as a marketer, you're not actually keen on putting yourself forward as that thought leader, as I have discovered on Footprints in the Market. Why do you think marketers in general are a bit like that? Like, why do you think they're much more comfortable putting other people's heads above the parapet and letting them have all that glory and kind of standing back?
I mean, there are marketers out there that are happy to kind of take the limelight. I mean, me personally, yeah, I've always kind of been. I think to use the term puppet master sounds wrong, because it sounds like basically Mike and everyone in my company are kind of all my puppets. But I'm kind of more just at the background setting things up. I've kind of got my role in the business, which is kind of. I worked for a company years ago, and I always joked that I was the kind of silent hero. And in fact, someone actually bought me a mug somewhere that says silent hero on it. And it was literally, it's me kind of getting the company pushed to the front. It was me getting Mike pushed to the front, or Danny, or Luz, whoever it may be within the business. I don't know, it's just, maybe we're a slightly shyer person than everyone, from your salespeople and so on. I mean, don't get me wrong, put me in Hugo's Terrace with a couple of shandies and I'll talk to anyone openly all night. But I think that kind of spotlight features don't know, maybe it's, I mean, me personally, maybe it's just a shyness, imposter syndrome kind of could probably be thrown in there. You know, it's just something that I'm kind of not comfy with personally, a bit like honesty.
It's a bit like the question that you've just
So,
asked me. No, because
yep,
it's like it's been a common theme. So don't worry. Like, that's why I'm asking, because like there's been like quite a few people that are like, oh, do you want to speak to my CEO? And I'm like, yeah, I would love to speak to your CEO, but for this particular project, it's about marketing, and it's about, you know, and it's good to kind of shine a light on all parts of that success.
definitely,
I
definitely.
mean,
You know, when you and I first when you and I first discussed about this project, you know, the footprints in the market, and the idea being that, you know, was to give a voice
yeah,
to marketers in the industry. That didn't necessarily mean my voice.
that was the caveat.
Yeah, yeah. It was because I wanted to hear from all the other marketeers about everything, not my own.
See, to be fair, as much as people might, you know, not believe it, I'm not that comfortable having my big face on everything either. But the problem I've got is I've also got a business partner who he likes to be the one behind the scenes as well. So that there's no, you know, we need to do it. We need to figure it.
Yeah, and with all due respect to Steve, he does have a face for radio.
He
So
will be making a cameo appearance on one of the podcasts just for you, Martin. Right, so now we've heard all about the good things. I want to hear about a mistake you've learned from. It doesn't need to be from Bet Comply. It can be in any sort of iGaming role you've had. Is there been one big thing you're like, shit, I wish I hadn't have done that, and it stuck with you?
a
Yeah,
mistake I
don't say
made.
coming on the podcast.
That's number two. Yeah, I've probably made quite a few mistakes along the way. But then I kind of think, if you know, certainly in marketing, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing
Yeah,
things right, because that's how, you know, that's how we learn kind of what works, what doesn't. Um, I think probably one that stands out was early in my
yeah,
career. I'm not going to say who the company was. Um, it was I was so focused on, I think, kind of trying to make the campaign look
yeah,
clever, that I kind of lost sight of whether I actually connected with the
yeah,
audience at all. You know, it was basically all style, it looked amazing, but actually there wasn't really any substance to it. Um, I think the result was, I think it was okay. It wasn't a complete car crash, but it didn't land the way that you kind of hope a campaign lands when you kind of push one out. And I think that was kind of wake up call. It was kind of realizing that in marketing, you know, kind of creativity in marketing only really works when there's kind of
yeah,
real
yeah.
relevance to it. So it's just trying to make that balance of, yes, make things look brilliant and wonderful, but never at the expense of kind of, you know, being clear, being authentic in your message, and kind of, you know, just making sure you resonate with
All
people.
style and no substance. I think we've all kind of made that mistake. Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, there's one thing you have to learn throughout your marketing
I
career.
think for me, I always get too emotionally attached, I think, sometimes to my marketing ideas. So then I'm like, I treat them all like they're like my children. And they're just,
And I think even the best marketeers, sometimes you need to kind of just get a second opinion and, you know, go, look, am I completely way off of this? Is it really crap? You know, just sometimes you just need a little tap back onto kind of route.
well, we're approaching 2026. So what is next year for Bet Comply? I'm guessing that you guys are going to be at ICE. How important do you think conferences are for lead generation for you guys?
For us personally, they're invaluable. We've I mean, luckily I can say that, you know, we've never done a show and not come away with new
Yeah,
business from it. So yeah, they are very, very important for us. You know, it's slightly different to kind of the big game studios or the big kind of operators that spend a massive amount of money. We we never have, you know. At ICE and at SPC Lisbon, we kind of just get a little booth in the kind of player protection zone area. Um, but we do make a lot of noise that we're going to be there. We have normally Mike will speak or Daniel will speak or somebody will be on the
yeah.
panel. Um, and yeah, we get a lot of kind of walk on business. As I said, going back to the early point, I think now we've kind of built up a name and a brand in the market that people kind of see us and they want to kind of just pick our brains on something. They'll ask about a licensing or an auditing. Um, we're constantly trying to be innovative with new products that we're pushing out, like with ComplyCheck, which is a kind of an audit, self-assessment audit tool, and that's being released into kind of new jurisdictions every couple of months. So there's always kind of new products that we're pushing out. For 2026, yeah, more of the same. We've, from a marketing angle, it's kind of been evolving. So year one was all about the branding, just getting the name out there, sponsoring what we could. Year two, we kind of dived that down a little bit, and there was more on kind of thought leadership pieces. So we had more podcasts, more interview pieces. We had interview slots in SBC Leaders magazine, in all the kind of tier one media and so on. We did an amazing roundtable event with iGaming Futures. So it's been real kind of trying to showcase the expertise and the knowledge that we have in the business. So that was the kind of focus for sort of year two. Year three will probably be kind of trying to kind of get a blend of the two. We're going to do a lot more events next year. We want to try and move into LATAM a bit more because we're getting a lot of LATAM inquiries, and we're helping a couple of companies with LATAM as well over there. So we're looking at some of the LATAM shows and working with some of the media over there. But yeah, it's just continuously pushing the products, getting bigger, hopefully kind of growing the team to kind of be able to offer more solutions out there. And we're looking at a couple of nice kind of AI tech pieces as well that we're looking at. So it's going to be an exciting year.
So you're talking about LATAM there. Like, what's really interesting is I've had quite a few conversations, like in terms of operators and affiliates, and there's been like this real big push, obviously, into new markets. But from like a marketing agency side, what we've kind of felt and found is that not all of them are prepared when it comes to kind of getting their ducks in a row, and it's kind of been this is cool, this is good, we must do this. Do you kind of feel that from the compliance side? Is there just lots of people maybe like coming to you guys and saying this is the new markets, but not with that knowledge and prep that you would potentially expect, and maybe kind of bite off more than they can chew?
Yeah, it's weird because with the kind of LATAM market, it's companies are now reacting like they used to do years ago in kind of Europe, which was let's just go in first and then work out compliance later. And we'll all work it out in the end, which is probably the complete wrong way of doing anything. I think companies have learned that they kind of need to get frameworks in place, looking kind of regulation and so on, what they have to do. If there's KYC or games providers that need certain certification, whatever it may be. There's a lot more kind of planning on it, but I think kind of there's definitely kind of a bit of a blinkers moment where people are just going, right, we're going to enter this jurisdiction without truly understanding what they actually have to do, the costs involved, what they need to get in place, what certifications, licensing they potentially need, what suppliers they're going to need for that area. There's a lot of kind of research that needs to be done before you kind of go, look, we're going to enter this market. But that's where we try and understand our client's business strategy to be able to kind of help them and guide them, so we can do gap analysis on what they're potentially going to need, what's missing from the business. We had one client that we did last year where we got them a license in a localized European jurisdiction. And then on the kind of follow-up call was, so what's next? And they basically just turned around to us and said, well, you tell us. And that's the kind of, it shows how we kind of really work together with the clients to kind of drive them forward, and understand the business and what they need to do, be it LATAM, be it Africa, be it anywhere in Europe.
The conference schedule next year looks crazy. How do you guys figure out which ones that you're going to attend and go to? Because I know that I've looked at it and already I'm just having like an anxiety attack.
Yeah, there is a lot. I mean, literally, you would never see your daughter again.
Exactly.
For the rest
She
of
might
the
like
year.
that. She might send me the calendar. Here you go, Mum.
Yeah, I mean, we all like to stay married, and if we do all these conferences, then there's a high chance that's not going to carry on. I think there's one is obviously looking at the sort of jurisdiction that these events cover. you're looking at the attendees, the level of the attendees that are coming to these events. Are they C-level? Are they decision makers? You can have a large event with 45,000 attendees, but if 90% of that is your salespeople and account managers and so on, whereas we need probably the decision makers, probably it's a bit like yourself as well, if you're trying to get through to CMOs and so on. It's really understanding who's going to be at the event, what jurisdictions is it going to be covering. You can look at a LATAM show, pick one, and but it might be focused purely on Brazil. Well, if you don't just want Brazil, but you want kind of more of a LATAM coverage, you've got to make a decision as a business, is that going to be right for us and who we want to talk to? Same as a lot of the kind of localized smaller shows, which is going to be jurisdiction focused, but then you're going to get the value in the attendees coming. So it's a real kind of balancing act to work out what you want to try and get from the show. One thing that I always do when we're sending staff to a show is really come up with, and in fact I went to a recent marketing forum by Clarion recently that came and had a speaker talking about rather than ROI, it's ROO, which is return on objectives. And it was a brilliant thing around, when you go to events, are the objectives of each member of staff that's going to that show being met? And that can be everything from brand, and you do surveys, from lead gen meetings to meeting current clients, to giving out business cards, to speaker panel. How was the speaker what were the reactions on the panel? So there's a number of different markers to use. So I try and kind of use all that information to work out what I want from a show, to then work out which one is relevant for me. Because as you say, there's so many, and there's new one popping up every week.
Well, that's it. It didn't used to be a problem that I had when I first started, because it was just, there was like so few conferences. Like, there was like 3 that everybody went to that year. And now I'm like, oh right, wait, now I need to strategize the whole diary and figure out what's best. And it's strange, but do you know what? I think it's probably a testament. It's just kind of like showing how much iGaming's grown, and how much there's obviously a want and a need.
Absolutely. If you think back to when we kind of started this industry, US wasn't really functioning, LATAM wasn't really talked about much. There was, kind of European. Asia wasn't really mentioned at all. Africa was kind of a little bit on the peripheral. So yeah, as you said, you had ICE in London, and I think it was the kind of main one. You had a couple of smaller ones. There was the affiliate businesses and so on. But nowadays you've got a massive show in Romania. You've got one in Scandinavia. You've got one in Africa going on. And you can't. I suppose you just have to work out what is your business. So for Comply, for example, where is our business focusing on for the next year, and where do we need to be to kind of make sure we're getting the most kind of from attending those shows.
Footprints in the Market is brought to you by Digital Footprints, your strategic marketing partner and safest bet in iGaming. Make your mark and work with us to drive growth and innovation for your iGaming business. But I think you're right as well, seeing you're saying like in terms of objectives, because especially from a marketeer's perspective, there is so much good content. At these conferences for people to learn learn from, unless I'm speaking, obviously. Probably avoid, joking. But there is so much great content that probably, new marketers within the space, they could just go to a conference just to learn stuff for 3 days. They could just sit at the panels and then just come back, fully trained, free training.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not many places that you can go for 3 days and learn about every jurisdiction, technology advances in game development, marketing opportunities and this and that, all under one roof. If you were going to send someone on a kind of a learning course about gaming, send them to an ICE or an SBC Lisbon and say, right, go to every single event that you can go and talk, conference you can listen to. And you'll just pick up so much information. And certainly with those 2 events we've just mentioned, you do have high quality speakers. You do have C-level people talking about what they've learned, the challenges they're facing, where they've gone wrong with certain things, and it's interesting to hear. It kind of goes back to that whole transparency and trust in the industry that I think we all want. And hearing from CEOs and CCOs and so on talking about it, kind of just gives you a bit of insight.
Well, what I'm going to do, Martin, is I'm going to finish off there with the last question that I've asked most guest speakers, which I know you've obviously tuned into every episode, so you'll be fully excited. So if there's one
Yes.
if there's one piece of advice you could give a new marketer within this space that you've learned, what would it be?
One piece of advice. It would probably be around. Don't get caught up in, I suppose, all the metrics. That you kind of forget about the meaning behind everything you're putting out. Data is important, and we kind of need it to understand our business and where it's going and how it's doing. But actually, for me, the best marketing still comes from understanding people. What they care about, what do they trust, what makes them act, whether that's buying a product, whether that's watching a webinar or downloading a white paper. What is it that gets them to kind of do it? Especially in iGaming where credibility is everything. Your job as a CMO isn't just to drive clicks or leads. It's also to build the belief around your brand. So, focusing on that kind of clarity, that transparency that we mentioned, the authenticity, the value, and I think the numbers will then follow. Lead with purpose, not just performance. And I think that's what gives you longevity in this industry.
Okay, well, that's definitely a good soundbite. We'll put that in an audiogram. Lead with purpose. that'll be your.
Don't ask me to say again because I can't remember what the hell I just
That'll
said.
be your promo reel. Okay, so thank you so much. I know how difficult this has been for you. I will stop torturing you, and I will buy you a steak dinner at the next conference.
You owe me a steak and a large cocktail now, and I'm going to be taking it up.
Thank you so much, Martin. We really appreciate it.